Welcome to the Mind Myself podcast. I'm Esther, and it is my pleasure to be bringing you information about healthcare approaches, health issues, and people's health journey stories, all from the complementary, holistic, and integrative perspectives, helping you become your own best health advocate and helping you make your own informed choices because you matter. Welcome to Conversations with E on the Mind Myself podcast. I'm Esther, and it is my pleasure to welcome to our stage today, Sarah Wallace. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Let's just talk a little bit about you to set the stage. What you do, your credentials, and a little bit about your experience, please.
So like I said, my name is Sarah. I am a full spectrum birth worker, but I specialize in postpartum. So I come into people's homes and help them get through the first weeks and months of postpartum after they bring home a baby. So that's helping with a lot of the physical stuff, like maybe actual baby care or like light housework, those things that add up to your mental load, emotional support and educational support as well. I also teach childbirth education classes, so I teach prenatal classes throughout pregnancy, and I also teach postpartum preparation classes as well.
Fantastic. And what's your background that led you to that?
When I went to university actually to be a teacher, so that was my initial path in life. And I did do that, but then I had kids and that got set aside. And as I had more children, I realized that there's really just not enough support in the postpartum for families. And I really wanted to help with that. I saw that a lot when I was working with a company that does a lot of programming for preschoolers and toddlers and their parents and that as well. And so I just knew that when you feel supported and you are supported in those early days, it just leads to a much better foundation for the parents, for the kids, for the family in general. And so that was kind of why I focus on postpartum.
Thank you for sharing that. And I understand you have 4 children. What are their ages at the moment?
They are 12, 10, 8, and 6.
Oh my goodness, you are a busy woman and you know of what you speak here. Well, and tell us why you're passionate about what you do, because clearly you have some experience in this area.
Honestly, I really just think that we don't have enough support for that. You have your baby and the hospital or midwife, whoever your healthcare provider is like, hey, here's your baby and off you go. There's no manual to tell you what to do. Even if there was, it wouldn't really do much because every baby is different. And, we don't have enough of that mental health support for people. I went through postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, and I know firsthand, I know that that's not there. And when you are going through that, you don't sit there thinking oh, I'm depressed, I have anxiety. You're thinking, I'm a real crappy mom. I'm failing at this. I'm a failure. And that's not a great feeling. And so I really want to be a person to be there with people and be like, hey, no, you're doing the right things. You're responding to your baby. You're showing up. You just have to show up. And
that's amazing. Carry on.
I've got a cat visitor.
Excellent. We welcome pets here in this space too. So you just finish that thought that I interrupted you on.
Yeah. I don't remember what I was saying.
Okay. It was something about feeling like a failure and that you're not a good mom and just I'm imagining feeling like you have nowhere to turn.
Yeah. And it feels like nobody's really seeing you. And so that's one of the things that there's so much value and power in truly being seen. And when we're supporting our family and friends, as much as we love them very much and they're dear to us, we have our own history with them and our own biases with them and our own, there's all this other stuff that comes along with that, as much as we love them and want to be a support for them. When I go into a family's home, I don't have that. I'm there for them, and it doesn't matter. They don't have to worry that one of the things that they might they might tell me that, you know what, the other day I was driving and I thought about driving into traffic. Like, they don't have to worry that I'm going to judge them because they're having intrusive thoughts or something that they're worried about like that. They know that I'm going to be there as a person to be like, that does not feel good. So there's power in being seen, and that is really ultimately, like, there's all these bits and pieces of what I do, but that is what it boils down to.
I love that. There's power in being seen. That is so true. So let's take a step back and dive in a little bit. What actually is postpartum planning, and when is the ideal time to start, other than if you haven't done it now?
So postpartum planning is basically making a guidebook for the postpartum. I always talk about it like, if you go on a vacation, you make a plan for it. It may be really detailed depending upon the kind of person you are. It may not be as detailed, but rarely do you just show up to the airport and be like, I'm hopping on that plane and going this place. We may talk about it like, oh, that'd be great. That would be something real fun to do. But in reality, it's not what most people do. You make a plan for it. You plan what you're doing, where you might eat, those sorts of things, researching those places. Postpartum's the same way. We want to be planning for what might come up. It might it might go perfectly. Everything goes exactly as you want it to go. Great, awesome. But if something goes wrong, you don't want to have to be searching for that resource when you're really struggling. So postpartum planning is really just making that guidebook of where you can get help, who's going to help you eat while you're busy feeding your baby, how are you going to get a shower, who's going to do all of the other jobs that you literally can't do right now, like take the trash out or whatever, walk your dogs, like all of those other things that come along with being a human. How are you going to get those things done? Postpartum planning makes a guidebook for that. And when to do it really is, I always recommend that, you do it throughout your pregnancy, because it requires asking people things. Like, it's a birth plan, you make it of what you want, and you don't really have to talk to people about it. Like, maybe let your doctor know, that sort of thing. But a postpartum plan requires being like, hey, who are the people that can help me do this particular thing? When can they help me? Well, you can't assume that. You have to literally ask them. And so asking ahead of time, giving people that space to be able to answer from a place of, yes, I can do that for you. No, I can't do this, but this is what I'm able to do. It'll take some of that pressure off.
Right. And what I'm hearing you say is the time to do it is before you need it, so that you're not in a panic. There's no time crunch or constraint. And it's when you're thinking as logically and rationally as you can, and saying, I'm part of a community. Maybe I can't do all of this on my own. For instance, I think you and I have talked about this before. What happens if you need some help with breastfeeding? Maybe there's some problem that happens. Wouldn't it be better to be prepared in advance and know who you're going to call? I would imagine that just takes the emotional burden and worry right off of a mom.
Yeah. And it gives, if, for example, you're really struggling with like postpartum mental health, it gives your partners or loved ones who are supporting you a place where they can go and they know, oh, this is the person I need to call, and they can call them for you. Even with nursing if that's where you're struggling or whatever that happens to be. It puts it all out there, so it's not just in your head. It's not only yours to carry.
Yes. Now, and I hear that you've mentioned a few things like taking the trash out, who's going to walk the dog.
Yeah.
Let's dive deeper into a list of some of the practical things that women could look at, or men, really, if they're partners, but what are some of the things that we could list right now for people to go, oh, I didn't even think of that?
Yeah, so I actually have a document I use with clients, and we go through it step by step. I think there's 10 different steps that we go through. But the first thing that we talk about is, what are your rules for the immediate postpartum? What do you want those first few days to look like? And what are the barriers to getting that? How do you want people to contact you? Do you even want them to? Maybe you don't want them to at all, and you want them to wait until you contact them. Or maybe you only want them to contact your partner and not you. Are you okay if people come visit? Or do you want them to just drop food at your door? Are you okay with other people's children coming? So what are those rules about that early postpartum? We don't get that time back. And so, it's really important to think about how you can get it to be what you want it to look like.
Right. And if a woman's having a first baby, she might not know. She might not know what she wants, but she might have a few plans, or maybe she's an outgoing person, or maybe she's very introverted, and those plans would look very different depending on the person. Absolutely. And depending on the moment.
Yeah. And I always say too, that when you're thinking about those rules, one of the things that I always stress is, it is easier to make stronger, stricter rules and loosen them than to go the other way. Right. If you have any uncertainty about, like, I don't know if I want people to come visit me or not, just say no to start with. And then after, if baby's here and you're like, you know what, actually, I'm good with that, they can come. Then it's easier to say that. It is really hard when somebody is at your house to be like, actually, this is too much, you need to leave.
Right. Everybody always wants to go and see a baby. So it's never a problem to loosen that one, for sure. Absolutely. And then what about after the first few days? What are some of the other things on your list?
The other things we talk about is what are the things that you want help with? What are the things that you need help with? Do you need help with certain jobs, like walking the dog, taking the garbage out? Do you how are you going to get fed? How are you going to be able to have a shower? What are those things that you need to do to be a human, because you're humans? What are those list of jobs? So just making that list. And when we're talking about that, I always talk about, what are the things that you are responsible for right now? Like, all of them. What are those things? What things can we set aside because it doesn't really matter? Like, it doesn't matter if the garden doesn't get in right away necessarily. But it probably matters taking your dog out for a walk, right? They still need that exercise. And so how are you going to split that up? What things can you set aside? What things do you have to figure out how they're going to get done still? Right. Or we figure out who's going to do those jobs. Who are you going to ask to do those jobs that you need someone else to do?
Right. So it sounds to me like prioritizing all of the things that you normally need to do, like all the stuff in your kitchen, vacuuming, dusting, cleaning the bathroom, maybe hiring somebody to help Absolutely. You for the first couple of months while you're just getting used to it, especially for a first-time mom. Yeah. And what do you do if somebody says, well, that's a really great idea, but I don't have a lot of extra money for that kind of thing? There might be people so great, yes, that's what I'm going to do. But somebody else says, yeah, my budget's a little bit tight, or I'm a single mom. So What do you recommend in those circumstances? I
always talk about, you want to be also making sure that you're making connections with people. So if you don't already have those connections with other people that would be able to come and help you, to really do that through pregnancy is an important thing. But honestly, like, you don't know. A lot of the time, we assume people can't help us a certain way. Oh, I can't ask someone to do that for me. When they would. You just have to ask them. I really believe that the people in our lives that love us want to be able to help us. And so sometimes they don't know how to do that, because what they think is helpful is really not what's helpful. So saying what you need tells them how you need help and gives them the opportunity to be like, I can't help you that way, but I could give you like $50 to get a cleaner or something. So, putting those sorts of things on wish lists, or like if you're having a baby shower, putting it on your list for that, like for gift certificates, and that are one of the things that you can do as well. And just reaching out in your community. I know my community has a really fantastic moms group, and they're actually across Canada, Mamas for Mamas. And like, there's so many times that like a single mom in particular will post on it and say, I'm really struggling right now. Like, my house is a mess or whatever. And people will be like, hey, I can come help you. I can come like Friday for an hour and help. You never know, don't ask.
That's an awesome resource. And I know that you've got a couple others that we'll list in the notes to this interview, which is fabulous. Are there any other things that somebody needs to consider when creating a postpartum plan?
I always like for people to make a list of, so we've got our task division, making a list of who can help you and when, making a list of professional support that you might need, including people you already use, like a massage therapist, if you're going for massages, or a chiropractor or a naturopath, any of those people that you might already use or you might want to start using, going and making a list of those people in that list, or on a list, as well as making a list of things that like you can do to continue nourishing that connection with your partner, if you have one. Because if you have a partner, hopefully you made your baby with love and you're wanting to, I know that's not always the case, but if you have a partner, you're probably wanting to keep that connection strong. And so making a list of the things that you can do to do that, and how you're going to do that now that your relationship will change a little bit. And the biggest one I always say is make a list of the things that make you feel good. It's easy to be like, when things are going well, to be like, oh, I really love having a hot bath, or I like digging in the dirt and gardening, or whatever it is. A hot coffee makes me feel really good. When you're feeling down, when you're overwhelmed with everything, and it is really hard to access that knowledge. So being able to grab a list and be like, oh, yeah, that song does make me feel really good, I'm going to put it on, can take one of those steps out and make it easier to get there.
Well, that's some great advice, Sarah. So as we're coming to the end of our great conversation today, so full of useful information, what's one thing you'd like to leave the listener with today?
It's okay to ask for help. Please ask for help. Like, you don't have to carry the load all on your own. The people that love you want to help you. You just have to tell them how.
That's a great way to end. We don't have to do all of this by ourselves. We are not alone. That's part of why we have Mind Myself too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us today and sharing your wisdom. I look forward to putting all the information in the notes as well. And again, thanks for being here and sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us at the Mind Myself podcast today. We know that time is precious, and you've spent some of your valuable time with us. We're grateful. If you would like to reach out to our guest directly, the information is below. And if you would like more from Mind Myself, that information is also below. Please visit our website and check out all the information about the different complementary, holistic, and integrative healthcare approaches, information about health issues, more podcasts, tons of blogs, and we even have a community page for you where you could reach out and tell your story safely, or you could ask questions and perhaps somebody else in the world is going through something similar to you. In any case, we're so glad you're with us, and we're doing this because you matter.